Um, Please remember that we are dealing with the Upanishad. So it's not like some literary text that you're reading. The Upanishads are basically, they were at one time called Rahasya and Guhya. Not because, as some people say, the Brahmins wanted to keep it to themselves. So they didn't want others. It's all rubbish. There's nothing like that. Many of the great Kshatriyas and others were also studying the Upanishad. It's not like that. In fact, Vishwamitra, who is considered to be the Mula Guru of the originator of Gayatri, was a Kshatriya. So it's not like that. It's simply that they decided that it is. So this is why I want to say this. It's not. It's meant basically for those who are seriously seeking the truth, and nothing else, and nothing but the truth. It's like that. So therefore, they said, don't give it to somebody who cannot understand what is being said. Don't give it to somebody who says, oh, everything is Brahman, so I have to do nothing. You understand? So, to reach the Upanishadic way of thought, one has to go through various other things before one touches that. They are supposed to be the highest knowledge possible to us in words. Like to say that everything is all one and everything is okay, then what am I supposed? I have to do nothing. It's not like that. In which case, all the rishis must have been fools because they worked hard at it to reach the Upanishadic understanding. So, we are dealing with what was once considered Guhya, hidden, and Rahasya, secret, because it was not to be given to people who have not disciplined themselves and attained a state where they can deal with it. If everything is Brahman, Sarvam Etat Brahman, the rum is Brahman, the bar is Brahman, it doesn't work that way. You understand? So, yeah, you can say rum, because rum is the Bijakshara for the Manipura Chakra. That's a different matter. So, Upanishad is meant for those who have already moved forward and then coming to the portals of entry into the higher wisdom. This is the Upanishad. And in several Upanishads, several times in my talks, I have discussed the meaning of the Upanishad. Upa, meaning to go close. Proximity. Upa is proximity to the teacher, to the truth. Because when you have touched what the Upanishad is saying all about, then there is no proximity, there is no you. There is only that. So there is no question of proximity. But to listen and understand, proximity is required. So it's a very personal thing. A teacher who is teaching the Upanishads may teach different people in different ways, although the truth is the same. And you are using Raidas. Now, Raidas, was not belonging to any particular upper caste system. He was a complete saint by himself. What in those days was considered to be very low. So he has picked it up. The essence of the Upanishad he has picked up. So how did he do it? So therefore, Upa means one is to move closer to the truth. It also means proximity between the teacher and the taught. And Shad means to settle your mind. It also means to sit. Sit is also Shad. But apart from sit, we can sit here, but our mind can be wandering. So it also means letting the mind sit down. To settle down. Without settling of the mind, it is not possible to understand the Upanishad. This is what is being said. And Ni, the interconnecting syllable Ni, is that which shows the attitude with which the student sits before he learns the Upanishad. Ni, the Hindi word Niche comes from Ni, which means the person who is listening understands first that he does not know, And that Shruti is being said, and therefore the Shruti has to be heard properly. And if I am full, then I cannot hear it. So keep myself clean. So this is Upanishad. So when, not now, I'm not the Rishi, but when in the forest academies, now all forests are fading, so what about academies? In the forest academies, when the teacher sat with the student and he sat with the understanding that I don't know, I'm empty, I'm going to listen. He did not sit with the feeling that, well, I have studied the Upanishads, somebody has talked about the Upanishads. For the first time, as if you're listening, for the first time, when the person settles down, and listens in close proximity, then the Upanishad seeds kind of sprout. Then it is up to you what happens. This is the Upanishad. Now we are dealing with an Upanishad which is the smallest Upanishad in size, but considered to be one of the topmost Upanishads, in the sense that it scales the heights of Vedantic thought. And that it is so important is clear from the fact. First, only 12 verses, shortest. There is no Upanishad which has 12 verses. And it does not deal with what you should do, what you should not do. It deals with what things are as they are. And it deals with the different states of consciousness, which is common to all human beings, whether even to those who do not believe in spiritual matters or who don't believe in God. It's still applicable because it's discussing only 3 states of human existence and the 4th, of course, which can't be discussed. So, therefore, it's such an important Upanishad. Adi Shankara has written a beautiful karika on the Upanishad. When Adi Shankara writes a commentary about something, you can be sure that there is something very important. Whether you agree with him or not, that's a different matter. And apart from that, Adi Shankara's Guru's Guru, Paramaguru, wrote one of the most extensive karikas on the Mandukya Upanishad, Gaudapada, called Gaudapada's karikas. Gaudapada, the great Guru's Guru of Shankara, wrote this beautiful karika which runs into several thousand pages. And Shankara wrote a karika on the Gaudapada's karika which runs Vivarna, it runs into several thousand pages. So you can imagine the importance of the subject that is dealt with here. Of course, Shankara had to do it because he had to prove the world is an illusion. But anyway, see how important it is. This is the Mandukya. I'll come to the question. I just want to give a short. So now this Upanishad starts with O. Like many Upanishads starts with different things, but ultimately they move towards the same goal. The Kena Upanishad starts with who? Who is it? This starts with the who, which is Om. Right? So in the process, since Shad also means, according to Shankara, shaking up, it shakes up a lot of pet theories that one holds. So, the first sloka, which you sang just now very beautifully, which is Om iti etad aksharam idam sarvam tasyopa vyakhyanam bhutam bhavad bhavishyat iti sarvam omkarameva yak chanyat trikalatitam tat api omkarameva, which means this omkar which we are discussing, it is all that you see is this Om, this syllable Om, in, out, everywhere. The past, the present and the future is this Om. All this is only the syllable Om. Whatever there is beyond the threshold of time, Trikala past, present, future, beyond. Trikala is this past, present. Trikala beyond is also this Om. That too is only Om. This is how the first sloka. And the second sloka says, Sarvam he etat Brahma. I am Atma Brahma. So am Atma Chatushpat. Says, all this is verily the Supreme Brahman. This self is Brahman. So if you say everything is Brahman, why should you again qualify and say this self is Brahman? The same self has 4 quarters. It didn't say parts. Quarters. Which means there are 4 ways by which it can be. How do you say 4 quarters? Dig. 4 directions. Finally, when you go through any direction and understand the rest, then you can reach that which has no dig, which has no direction, because it is everywhere. Therefore, you can't really say that it is here or there or there or here. When something is here, like the Ishavasya, another Upanishad says, Ishavashyamidam sarvam, it's everywhere, all pervading. Yatkincha jagatyam jagat, that which moves in this universe, it is there in everything. Then it says something very interesting. Tena tyaktena bhunjita, let go and rejoice. For after all, it all belongs to the Brahman. So you don't worry too much about it. So this is the Upanishad. And Om has 3 functions. One is Om as a symbol describing the states of consciousness. Then Om as the sound, which the Upanishad says, use it as an arrow further up and hit the Brahman, hit the target, which is Brahman. So 2 meanings. The third is, it's a complete description symbolically of creation, preservation and destruction. The Om. So these are the 3 important functions of Om, what it actually means. So now, having given you a cursory idea, we will go to the question.